ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कथा मह्यं ददति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललित श्रीविशाख अन्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नाम्ने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वञ्चकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपीश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासरि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Reading from Śrīla Prabhupāda-līlāmṛta, Volume 2, Chapter number 38. No one listens to a poor man. By the way, Dorothea Mataji, if you find I'm speaking fast, let me know. Yeah. No one listens to a poor man. From 1965 until 1970, Srila Prabhupada had concentrated mainly on re-establishing Krishna consciousness in America. His plan had been that if the Americans turned to Krishna consciousness, the rest of the world would follow. Although his preaching to English-speaking people had begun in India, some 60 years of single-handed endeavor there had convinced him that Indians were either too absorbed in politics, too ignorant of their spiritual heritage, or too crippled by poverty to seriously accept Krishna consciousness. Therefore, he had not been successful. But in the United States, success had come. Clearly, America was the prime field for implanting Krishna consciousness. Yet Prabhupada found the West uncultured and uncivilized. If a trace of civilization remained anywhere, he would often say it was in India, the heart of the original Vedic culture. By 1970, he had demonstrated through his extensive traveling and preaching that he intended to establish the Krishna consciousness movement not only in the US but all over the world, especially in India. Even accepting that preaching in the United States and preaching in India were equally important, still the preaching in the United States was going well without Prabhupada's constant direct management. What he had begun, his American disciples could continue. But in India, Prabhupada could not allow his disciples to manage ISKCON. He saw how often and how easily the Indians were able to cheat his disciples. Half of ISKCON's work in India was being spoiled, he said, due to his disciples being cheated. If they put on a pandal program, they might end up paying several times the standard cost. The only way for ISKCON to develop in India would be under Prabhupada's direct management. Beginning in 1970 with a small band of American disciples, Prabhupada had traveled from place to place in India as a model sannyasi, opening a great new field for ISKCON. Now he wanted to construct big temples in India, three in particular, one in Vrindavan, one in Mayapur, and one in Bombay. As early as 1967, he had attempted to make an American house for his disciples in Vrindavan. Mayapur, being the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, was especially important, and Bombay was India's major city, the gateway of India. As with most of Prabhupada's big plans, even his closest disciples couldn't fully comprehend the scope of his vision. But Prabhupada knew what he wanted, and he knew it all depended on Krishna. Gradually, he began to unfold his plans. Temple construction, he said, was secondary to book publication and distribution, but Krishna consciousness must run on two parallel lines, just as a train runs on two rails. One rail was Bhagavat Marga and other Pancharatra Vidhi. Bhagavat Marg referred to the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, hearing and chanting about Krishna and disseminating the message of Krishna. The second rail, Pancharatrika Vidhi, referred to the rules and regulations for worshipping the deity in the temple. Of the two, Bhagavat Marg was the more important. Although great liberated souls like Haridas Thakur could remain in perfect Krishna consciousness simply by chanting Hare Krishna constantly, Prabhupada knew that his disciples, with their restless natures and past sinful habits, needed the special purification of worshipping the Lord in the temple. Therefore, one of his reasons for wanting to establish temples in India was to purify his disciples by giving them elaborate deity worship. Temples, however, were also for preaching. No one listens to a poor man, Prabhupada would say, and he therefore wanted to construct palatial buildings to attract the masses to Krishna consciousness. Especially, he wanted this in India, where the tradition of temple worship still existed. Building temples and worshipping the deity was secondary to publishing and distributing books, but it was not to be neglected. Prabhupada prepared to give temple construction in Mayapur, Vrindavan, and Bombay as much of his attention as necessary. Bombay, November 1971. For a year, the devotees had been living at the Akash Ganga address, two apartments on the 7th floor of a building in the heart of Bombay. But Prabhupada was not satisfied with this. He wanted land in Bombay to build on and to expand. He was determined. Instead of his usual morning walks, he would take long rides in his car to observe various parts of the city. Because many of the ISKCON life members lived in aristocratic Malabar Hill, Prabhupada's disciple thought it as a good place for a temple. On several occasions, Prabhupada rode to the top of Malabar Hill and walked around various properties, considering certain large buildings as possible temples. But for one reason or another, he judged them all unacceptable. Then in November, Mr. N offered to sell ISKCON 5 acres in Juhu, practically on the shore of Arabian Sea. As soon as Srila Prabhupada approached the land, he remembered having seen and considered it years before. In August of 1965, during the weeks just before he had left for America, he had been staying at Scindia Colony. In the evenings, he had gone to the home of Scindia Steamship Company owner Mrs. Sumati Morarji in Juhu, where he had read and explained Srimad Bhagavatam for her and her guests. Several times he had passed this very property and had thought what a good location it would be for an ashram and Radha Krishna temple. Although his attention had been absorbed in the task of leaving India, he had still considered the Juhu land. Now he was again in Juhu, reconsidering the same land he had noticed years before. He took it as a reminder from Krishna. The land was overgrown with tall grasses and bushes, and many coconut palms stood throughout. In the back of the property were several tenement buildings. The land bordered on Juhu Road, the main traffic artery back to Bombay, 18 miles to the south. A broad expanse of beach on the Arabian Sea was a brief walk away. The location was good, peaceful, yet not remote. Several five-star hotels bordered the nearby beach, and developers were beginning work on other hotels and apartment buildings. When Prabhupada walked along the beach, he liked even more the idea of buying the land. Rich men had weekend homes on the beaches, and thousands of Bombaites would be out enjoying the beach on Sundays. Daily, hundreds of Juhu residents used the long, broad seashore for morning walks before going to work. Almost always, people were strolling or gathering there, and yet the beach was clean. The mild waves and open skies were inviting. The local was ideal not only for hotels but for a Krishna conscious center. Prabhupada wanted the Juhu land, and although his disciples continued to show him houses in Malabar Hill, he didn't change his mind. His disciples wanted whatever he wanted, yet they had trouble developing enthusiasm for a property so far from the city and with no available housing, or temple facility. Mr. N, the owner of 5-acre plot, had set a reasonable price and seemed friendly and sincere. Yet risks were involved in such transactions, and in this case, Prabhupada even found reasons for suspicion. Through his lawyer, he learned that Mr. N had previously entered into an agreement to sell the same land to the C company, but had later cancelled the agreement. The C company had then filed a suit against Mr. N for breach of contract. If the Bombay High Court decided in the C company's favor, the land would be awarded to them. When Prabhupada's secretary questioned Mr. N about this entanglement, Mr. N assured him that C company could not win the suit, but that in any case, ISKCON could withhold a certain portion of their payment until the litigation with C was settled. Mr. N was a well-known figure in Bombay, formerly the sheriff of Bombay, an honorary judicial police position. He was now publisher editor of one of the largest daily English newspapers in Bombay. He was wealthy, owning several properties in Juhu and Bombay, and influential, not a man who would want to oppose. To purchase the Juhu land under the present circumstances required boldness. In late December, Prabhupada met with Mr. and Mrs. N at their home in Theosophical Colony in Juhu. Mr. N's home was on the beach, and thus the visit afforded Prabhupada another opportunity to appreciate the value and beauty of Juhu Beach, with its borders of palm leaning toward the sea. The Theosophical Colony was a private neighborhood of attractive homes with luxuriant lawns and flower gardens and many exotic birds. Ashoka trees grew on either side of Mr. N's driveway, and a line of palm trees standing just inside the massive stone wall encircled the property. A gardener opened the gate for Prabhupada and few devotees with him. Mr. N was a short, stocky man with a receding hairline. His hair was clipped short and his round face was pockmarked. He appeared to be in his 50s. Mrs. N had a fair complexion and unusual for an Indian, wore her hair short. Prabhupada had brought flower garlands and prasadam from the Radha Krishna deities of ISKCON Bombay, and these he offered to Mr. and Mrs. N, and Mr. N invited his guests to sit with him and his wife on the front porch, which faced a picturesque garden. Srila Prabhupada openly expressed his appreciation of the Juhu land but admitted he had very little money. Mr. M, however, seemed inclined toward Prabhupada and said he wanted to sell him the property. Quickly, they reached a verbal agreement. To Mrs. N, however, the agreement seemed too liberal, but when she objected, her husband overruled her. Prabhupada and Mr. N agreed on a down payment of 2 lakh rupees. After making the down payment, ISKCON would immediately receive the conveyance. ISKCON would pay the remaining balance of 14 lakh rupee later in regular installments. Prabhupada negotiated further regarding the down payment, offering to pay 50,000 rupees now and another 50,000 later, at which time ISKCON would be allowed to move onto the land. As soon as they paid the remaining 1 lakh rupee, the down payment would be complete and Mr. N would give them the deed. Mr. N agreed. Srila Prabhupada was always one to think carefully over such business transactions. He had said that if a businessman tells you, Sir, for you I am making no profit, you should know he is lying. Therefore, even in ISKCON's early days in New York City, when the real estate shark Mr. Price had posed as a well wisher of the devotees, Prabhupada had been suspicious. Mr. Price had in fact cheated the devotees despite Prabhupada's warnings to them. Now, as then, Prabhupada was suspicious, but he wanted the Juhu land and would take the risk. Prabhupada had taken similar chances. At Jhansi in 1953, he had occupied a building, although he had had little legal standing or financial security. And in this first storefront in New York, as soon as in his largest building to date, the Vatsaka Avenue Church in Los Angeles, he had moved in without assurance of monthly payments. Practically, the entire success of his movement had come by his taking one risk after another for Krishna. When the devotees in Boston had written to Prabhupada that they had rented a big house for $1,000 a month, calculating that they would be able to make the payments by dramatically increasing their back to Godhead sales, Prabhupada had approved and had even commended their example to others. So, if some risks were involved in Bombay, that was only natural. Once committed to the land, Prabhupada began to unfold his vision for a grand project in Bombay. On December 22, he wrote to Yamuna, Here in Bombay, we have got good prospects to purchase a very large land in Juhu for very cheap price, just in the middle of a rich neighborhood. We shall build one camp there and begin constructing a temple immediately. And later on, we shall develop a large hotel and school. There is also a chance of getting a nice bungalow in Bombay city also. So in general, we shall make our headquarters in Bombay and also build Vrindavan and Mayapur. While devotees around the world delighted to hear Prabhupada's plans for a Bombay city, devotees in Bombay had mixed feelings. To envision a temple rising from what a little more than a jungle tract was not easy. Nor was it easy to envision the five-star ISKCON hotel Prabhupada spoke of. The tenement buildings in the rear of the land were fully occupied, and according to Indian law, the tenants could not be removed. If the devotees moved onto the land, they would have to erect temporary housing, maybe even a temporary temple, and land was mosquito ridden and teeming with rats. Juhu was a small, almost isolated neighborhood without wealthy ISKCON supporters. Although Prabhupada and land speculators predicted that Juhu would grow, at present it was only a village of about 2,000. To reside at Juhu would be a drastic contrast to the comfortable Akasha Ganga building in downtown Bombay. Tamal Krishna explained to Prabhupada, "We are Westerners. We cannot live like this. We need door knobs and running water. Don't you want to become purified?" Prabhupada replied. When the Bombay devotees learned of Srila Prabhupada's response to Tamal Krishna, the words, "Don't you want to become purified?" went deep into their hearts. They knew that Prabhupada was asking them to become more austere and that it was for their ultimate benefit. They began to regard moving to Juhu as formidable spiritual challenge rather than a drudgery. Developing the Juhu property was important to their spiritual master, and it was something greater and more wonderful than they are present realized. Prabhupada knew he was asking his disciples to make a great sacrifice, but he could not avoid it. To preach Krishna consciousness, a devotee had to be prepared to tolerate many difficulties. And whatever difficulties he was asking his disciples to undertake, he was prepared to undertake to a much greater degree himself. On the other hand, he didn't think that living on an undeveloped Juhu property would be too difficult for his disciples, provided them provided they maintained cleanliness and chanted Hare Krishna. Yet he knew that because they were Vaishnavas, they would find it hard. A preacher, nevertheless, had to make sacrifices, not artificially or arbitrarily, but to expand the Krishna consciousness movement. Sometimes serving Krishna was pleasurable, sometimes difficult. In either case, a devotee had but to do the needful, accordingly, acting as a menial servant of the spiritual master. Prabhupada counseled his Bombay disciples, impressing on them his vision for ISKCON Bombay. Although all of them were ready to follow his decision, some of them had been feeling doubtful and weak hearted. Seeing their spiritual master's commitment to the project, however, they vowed to give up their separatist mentality. Prabhupada then left to for Jaipur for a week's preaching engagement at Radha Govinda Temple. Jaipur, January 12, 1972. Jaipur is an ancient city in the state of Rajasthan. Occasionally, some of Prabhupada's disciples would go there to purchase marble Radha Krishna deities for ISKCON temples in India and around the world. The devotees in ISKCON Center in Detroit, Toronto, Dallas, as well as throughout Europe wanted to install Radha Krishna deities, and with Srila Prabhupada's permission were ordering murtis from Jaipur. On such an errand, two women, Kausalya and Srimati, had gone to Jaipur in January of 1972 on behalf of the New York City temple. When a government official had discovered Srimati wasn't carrying her passport. The official, suspicious of spies due to the war with Pakistan, had insisted the woman stay in town until Srimati's passport arrived in the mail. Meanwhile, the girls had daily visited the Govindji temple and had sometimes held kirtan in the streets in front of the temple. They had had daily talks with P.K. Goswami, who was in charge of the temple, as well as Jaipur businessmen and other respectable citizens. Almost everyone in Jaipur regularly visits the beloved deities of Radha Govinda. The citizens of Jaipur had been moved by the devotion of Prabhupada's two disciples, and when one of the men had asked, "What can we do to help your movement?" the girls had replied, "Bring Srila Prabhupada here." Some of Jaipur's prominent citizens had devised a plan to share expenses and responsibilities in arranging a pandal program, and two women had sent a letter to Prabhupada in Bombay inviting him to come and preach. He had agreed. As Srila Prabhupada's request, at Srila Prabhupada's request, devotees from Delhi and other Indian centers came to Jaipur to join him. Prabhupada took a small room within the Govindaji's temple compound, and his disciples moved into a nearby house. Prabhupada liked the location. The only disturbance was the many monkeys, large charcoal-faced monkeys with long curling tails. Climbing through the trees and across the rooftops, they would scamper down unexpectedly to steal whatever they could. The women cooking for Prabhupada were exasperated by the monkeys' whole foray to steal vegetables from the kitchen. Even chapatis right off the fire, and they complained to Srila Prabhupada. Neither be their friend nor their enemies, Prabhupada advised. If you make friends with them, they will simply be a nuisance. If you become their enemies, they will become very vindicative, vindictive. Just maintain a neutral position. The monkeys, however, continued to riot the kitchen. Again, the cooks complained to Prabhupada. Yes, Prabhupada said, if you want to stop the monkeys, then this is what you must do. Purchase one bow and arrow and shoot a monkey on top of a tree with the arrow. And then, when he falls down, take the monkey and hang him upside down by the legs to a branch of a tree. Next to him, you also hang the bow and arrow. This will teach them. Prabhupada knew that shooting monkeys was illegal in Jaipur and he did not expect his disciples to actually shoot them, but he delivered the advice with a serious expression. Indirectly, he was advising them not to be so upset over a few monkeys. Prabhupada and his disciples immediately joined in the intense devotional atmosphere of Jaipur. Since the Radha Govinda temple was under the jurisdiction of Jaipur's royal family, to visit the deity daily was practically required for all citizens. Morning and evening, crowds of enthusiastic worshippers would come and go and worshipping the forms of Radha and Krishna on the altar. These were Rupa Goswami's original Radha Govinda deity from Vrindavan. Almost 500 years ago, when a Mughal ruler had attacked the Govindaji's temple in Vrindavan, the king of Jaipur had arranged for the deities to come to Jaipur. The worshippers at Radha Govinda Mandir displayed spontaneous excitement in seeing the deities. They would come forward crying, Jayo, Jayo, Govinda, Govinda, and when the curtains were closing, the people would rush forward to catch a last glimpse of the divine forms. Srila Prabhupada avoided the large crowds before the deity, keeping to his schedule of raising early and translating the Bhagavatam. Speaking with Kausalya and Srimati, Prabhupada praised them for having arranged the Jaipur Pandal program. You girls are carrying on Lord Chaitanya's movement so nicely, he said. Just see, even without husbands, you go on preaching. He said that the Western women were different from Indian women who simply stayed at home. Then Prabhupada discovered that the two women disciples had not actually done a thorough job. Although the Pandal program was to begin in 2 days, no one had arranged for the large tent to be erected. Prabhupada said it was not a woman's nature to do such organizational work. The women became morose to hear this. When they showed him the flyer they had printed advertising the festival, Prabhupada became angry. It is not standard, he said. It did not say International Society for Krishna Consciousness, but only A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami and his foreign disciples. What is this? Prabhupada shouted. What? Srila Prabhupada Kausalya asked. Foreign? Why do you say foreign? It must be American and European. That is what is attractive. That they are American and European. But you are just a woman. What can I expect? The two women began to cry and left the room. With Shyamasundara's help, Kausalya and Srimati had new corrected flyers printed and returned to tell Srila Prabhupada. But now his mood had changed completely. His anger was gone. He was soft after all. These disciples had tried their best. In a disarming disclosure, he began to explain to be a spiritual master was difficult. I chastise you, he said, because it is my duty. Disciple is related to discipline, so it is my duty to my disciples. Otherwise, I am not upset with anyone. I simply do this to discipline you because you are my disciples. He consoled them, saying they were sincere and lacked expertise because of poor upbringing. The devotees present felt Srila Prabhupada was wonderfully expressing to them a bit of what he, as spiritual master, felt in training them. In a great last-minute endeavor, the devotees obtained the pandal and erected it in time for Prabhupada to begin his program as advertised. On opening day, the devotees held a parade through the streets with Prabhupada riding in a palanquin, a large embroidered umbrella sheltering his head. Also in the procession were decorated elephants, brass bands, and devotees, Indian, American, and European, performing kirtan. Srila Prabhupada's first program was in the morning after the darshan of Govindaji so as to catch the huge morning crowd. People would come hurrying into the temple to see Radha Govindaji and then proceed out into the large Hare Krishna Pandal beside the temple. On the opening morning, Prabhupada performed an Abhishek ceremony bathing marble deity of Radha and Krishna. He named these deities soon to be shipped to ISKCON temple in New York, Radha Govinda. After one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples had performed a fire sacrifice, Prabhupada lectured to the crowd in Hindi. The schedule for the remaining days would be morning and evening lectures, kirtans, and prasadam distribution. While preaching in Jaipur, Srila Prabhupada was simultaneously reflecting on and, through letters to his disciples, acting on matters in many other parts of the world. Although he participated fully, giving 2 lectures a day, and although he constantly met and interacted with guests, friends, and devotees, he was also absorbed in thoughts of other places and concerns. He was conducting his movement on many fronts. Wherever he happened to be at present was his camp, just as a general makes camps in various places while conducting many battles in the overall effort of a war. His preaching in Jaipur, therefore, was only a small fraction of scope of his worldwide mission. From Jaipur, Prabhupada wrote his disciples in Calcutta, urging them in their development of Mayapur land. He wanted a grand opening ceremony by Lord Chaitanya's birthplace in March. Unfortunately, the government was restricting foreigners from entering Nadia because of its proximity to Bangladesh. Please try very hard to get those permits, Prabhupada urged his men in Calcutta, as we must be all assembled there for Lord Chaitanya's appearance day. Repeatedly, Prabhupada mentioned his concern over the government's restricting his men. I do not think there will be difficulty if we just go there like the ordinary pilgrims and set up our camp there for kirtan continuously. Anyone will see we are only serious devotees of Lord Chaitanya and not Pakistani spies. Prabhupada wrote ahead to his disciples in Nairobi, driving them onward with his blessings. Continue to work very hard for his pleasure, and all of you will go back home, back to Godhead. To San Diego Temple President, Srila Prabhupada wrote, I am very pleased to hear from you that book sales are increasing very fast. I am hearing such good news from all over the society, and this pleases me more than anything. And Prabhupada was often thinking of the land in Bombay. Sometimes he talked about it or mentioned it in a letter to his representatives there. The Bombay land purchase was still not finalized, and Prabhupada was particularly anxious that his disciples pay the amount money as agreed and move immediately onto the land. Tamala Krishna was Srila Prabhupada's governing body commission secretary for India. Some of the devotees said that actually Prabhupada was the GBC secretary for India. Although he allowed his secretaries in other parts of the world to manage mostly on their own and to make their own decisions, in India he would scrutinize even small matter and make most of the decisions himself. Still, he counted on Tamal Krishna as his trusted assistant in important dealings. He would send Tamal Krishna from one Indian center to another to help the local devotees with governmental, legal, organizational, or preaching problems. In Bombay, just prior to coming to Jaipur, Tamal Krishna had asked Prabhupada's permission to take sannyas, the renounced order. Srila Prabhupada had awarded sannyas to only a few men, and he had specified their duties as traveling and preaching. Taking sannyas, therefore, not only meant giving up wife and family, but also renouncing managerial posts. At the same time, as Prabhupada had set up his governing body commission, he had also initiated several sannyasis, purposefully not appointing any of them, even though they were some of his most able men, as GBC secretaries. The Grihasthas were to manage the temples as presidents and GBC secretaries, and sannyasis were to travel and preach. Srila Prabhupada therefore had to carefully consider whether or not to give Tamala Krishna sannyasa and thus lose his GBC secretary for India. On principle, Srila Prabhupada liked the idea of giving Tamal Krishna sannyas. If a young man was actually qualified to give up family life and to use his intelligence and energy in preaching Krishna consciousness, then Prabhupada was always ready to encourage it. The world was in dire need of Krishna consciousness, and even hundreds of sannyasis would still not be enough. On these grounds, how could he not appreciate the request of one of his leading disciples to take sannyas? But first, he would test Tamal Krishna's determination. Tamal Krishna was insistent. Seeing that Prabhupada would not make a commitment, Tamal Krishna had adopted the tactic of presenting himself before Prabhupada early in the morning without saying a word. In Bombay, he had entered Prabhupada's room, led the Mangalarti before the deities, and then sat silently before Srila Prabhupada. Knowing the mind of his disciple, Prabhupada could understand that Tamal Krishna was not only determined but obstinate. After several days of tolerating Tamal Krishna's silent, insistent presence every morning, Prabhupada had finally agreed to consider seriously the request. Prabhupada was also concerned with Madhuri Devi Dasi, Tamal Krishna's wife. She was an attractive, intelligent girl who had given her life to Krishna consciousness, and Tamal Krishna, by his own choice, had married her only a year ago. Spiritually, Madhuri was Srila Prabhupada's daughter, and Prabhupada wanted to protect her from undue disturbance. Even as a householder, Tamal Krishna and his wife had been renounced, traveling with Prabhupada throughout India, with little time or facility for private life as husband and wife. Tamal Krishna had been in Bombay when Shamasundar had informed him that Prabhupada had mentioned in a letter to Brahmananda Swami in Africa that Tamal Krishna might take sannyas. Spurred on, he had left his wife in Bombay and joined Prabhupada in Jaipur. On leaving, however, Tamal Krishna had asked Madhuri for her personal copies of the first three volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam, signed by Srila Prabhupada. Madhuri had become suspicious. She had asked why he wanted them. I just want to read them, Tamal Krishna had answered, but she had suspected the worst. No, you are not coming back. But assuring her that he would definitely be returning, he had left for Jaipur. Once with Srila Prabhupada, Tamal Krishna again resumed his silent insistence. Whenever there would be an open meeting in Prabhupada's room, the GBC leaders would usually sit in a privileged position near Prabhupada as so as to be best receive so as to best receive direct instruction. Tamal Krishna, however, would simply sit outside the door. The first time he did this, Prabhupada looked up and said, Tamal Krishna, you are sitting outside? That is very nice. And other devotees took it that Prabhupada was praising his disciples' humility. When on one occasion Prabhupada addressed Tamal Krishna as Tamal Krishna Maharaj, the devotees were startled. The women devotees in Jaipur, being close friends with Madhuri, became angry at what they took to be Tamal Krishna's duplicity. Although Prabhupada had not given permission, Tamal Krishna went ahead with his plans even to the point of preparing his sannyas danda and dyeing his clothes. The women were outraged. Madhuri was not even there to represent herself. Altogether, the women went to Srila Prabhupada, who patiently and sympathetically heard their presentation. Then Prabhupada called for Tamal Krishna and said, Your wife is my daughter, my disciple, and I have to think for her also. So I do not know how I can do this because she will be in great difficulty. Tamal Krishna argued, but Prabhupada pacified him and asked him to be patient. The sannyas issue had become a topic of controversy among the devotees in Jaipur. The men were rooting for sannyas and the women were opposed. Prabhupada, however, remained grave. Throughout the week-long festival, large crowds continued to come for Prabhupada's morning and evening lectures. Prabhupada would chant prayers from Brahma Samhita and then lecture in Hindi. Not only did the citizens of Jaipur honor Prabhupada, but they honored his disciples also. Here, more than in most other Indian cities, the devotees were treated not as foreigners or outsiders, but as sadhus. This whole city is made of devotees of Radha Govindji, Prabhupada commented. The police chief, who visited often, was cordial and respectful. As Prabhupada and his disciples went from place to place in Jaipur during the day, policemen would salute them, halting traffic to let them pass. People invited Srila Prabhupada to their homes and they treated him like a king. Prabhupada had also asked several women devotees to carefully observe the deity worship in Jaipur. They informed him they had observed that every night the deities were dressed in night clothes and that their clothes were also changed at two other times, in the morning and the afternoon. The women told Prabhupada how a priest offered the deities scented oils on cotton tipped sticks, which the priest would later offer along with flower garlands from the deities to the incoming worshippers in exchange for fresh garlands. These devotional practices were standard, Prabhupada said, and could be introduced throughout ISKCON. Each evening, Prabhupada spoke at the pandal, and often a respectable Jaipur citizen would introduce him. When the Queen of Jaipur introduced him one evening, she expressed her devotional sentiments for Prabhupada and his movement. After lecturing each evening, Prabhupada would stay for a slideshow of ISKCON's activities around the world. One night during the slideshow, Srila Prabhupada called Tamal Krishna over beside his Vyasasan. Taking sannyas will be difficult now, he said softly. Your wife will suffer too much. He sat back a moment while Tamal Krishna took in what he had said. Then Tamal Krishna leaned forward and said with determination, one way or another, Srila Prabhupada, she is going to suffer. Either she suffer now when I take sannyas, or if I take sannyas later on, she will be just as unhappy. There will never be a time when she'll want me to. So, since the feeling is going to be the same, it might as well come now. Free me, she'll get over it. Prabhupada said no more, but he remained thoughtful. Later that night, after the Pandal program, he called for his sannyasi disciples Subala, Madhu, Tvisa, Gargamuni, and Devananda, and for his personal secretary Shyamasundara. Gathering them together along with Tamal Krishna, he said, Tamal Krishna wants to take sannyas. So, what is your opinion? Shall we take or not? Sorry, should he take or not? Everyone agreed he should. Finally, Prabhupada consented. You will have to prepare things, he said. Things are prepared already, Tamal Krishna said. Then said Prabhupada, tomorrow morning we must have the ceremony. The next morning, Prabhupada performed a special ceremony in the pandal, lighting the sacrificial fire and offering Tamal Krishna the sannyas danda. The women were angry with Tamal Krishna, but it was too late. After the ceremony, Prabhupada called Tamal Krishna Maharaj to his room. You have given up a very good wife and a high position. Therefore, I am giving you the title Goswami. Now you have to be in the same mood as Goswamis, being able to preach all over the world and accept disciples. Suddenly, Prabhupada began to laugh. I have been testing you, he said, to see whether or not you were determined. So, what will you do? I thought I would go with my danda, said Tamal Krishna, and without anybody else, simply wander from city to city in India and preach about Krishna without any vehicle or anything, just like Lord Chaitanya did. Very good, Prabhupada said. Tamal Krishna Maharaj offered obeisances and walked out. Scarcely an hour later, however, Prabhupada called him back. This is not a very good proposal, he said. If you want to do something, you should have some assistants and facilities at your disposal. Prabhupada then assigned a couple of brahmacharis to go with Tamal Krishna Maharaj for preaching. He also gave his new sannyasi his first assignment. Immediately after Jaipur, Prabhupada was planning to go to a festival in Nairobi, Africa, yet in Ahmedabad. Another program awaited him. You go on my behalf to Ahmedabad, said Prabhupada. At Tamal Krishna Goswami's sannyas initiation, Srila Prabhupada had given him the sannyasi mantra, a verse that describes the surrendered devotional attitude of Vaishnava sannyas. Vaishnava sannyas emphasizes engaging one's body, mind, and words in ecstatic service to Krishna, as distinguished from the sannyasi of impersonalist who speculated on Brahman or sit alone in silent meditation. The Vaishnava sannyasi, by taking shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, crosses the ocean of nescience and brings others across with him. As Srila Prabhupada was demonstrating, a Vaishnava sannyasi should travel all over the world, working with all his might to reclaim the fallen souls on behalf of Lord Krishna. Vaishnava sannyas meant coming to places like Jaipur and preaching. It meant worshipping Govindaji in temple, and it meant sending Radha Govinda to be worshipped by the devotees in New York City. It meant allowing women an equal opportunity to become pure devotees in Krishna consciousness. And It meant separating a man from his wife for the higher purpose of sannyas. Srila Prabhupada, although beyond the Varnashram designation of sannyas, was nevertheless the best sannyasi and creator of many other sannyasis, whom he instructed to follow in his footsteps. He said his sannyasis should do even more than he, make more followers, publish more books, and establish more ISKCON centers. Bombay, January 24, 1972. On returning to Bombay, Prabhupada was disappointed to find that the devotees had neither paid Mr. N nor moved to Juhu. Madhutvisha Swami, whom Prabhupada had put in charge, frankly admitted his inability to accept the responsibility for such a difficult project. The disciple Prabhupada had originally deputed to handle such affair was Tamal Krishna Maharaj. But now that he had taken sannyas, he had renounced his GBC duty for traveling and preaching, and Prabhupada was without a manager for Bombay. Although Prabhupada was doing most of the managing, but he couldn't do everything. He couldn't stay constantly in Bombay. Searching for a veteran disciple to manage Juhu, Prabhupada thought of Brahmananda Swami, who was still preaching in Nairobi. Prabhupada decided to fly to Africa and invite Brahmananda Swami to come and manage Bombay. He wanted to act swiftly so that ISKCON could take possession of the land. Even if Mr. N changed his mind later, once the devotees were living on the land, getting them to leave would be very difficult for him. Srila Prabhupada planned to fly to Nairobi immediately and he wanted to carry large Radha Krishna deities with him. The deities he had previously sent to Nairobi had been broken in shipping, so this time Prabhupada brought with him strong-bodied Madhutvisa Swami to carry the 66-inch marble deities. With special permission from the airlines, Prabhupada boarded, followed by Madhutvisa Swami, who held his arms the 100-pound deity of Krishna. After setting Krishna in a place beside Prabhupada's seat, Madhutvisa Swami left the plane and came back carrying Radha Rani. Prabhupada passed most of the flight debating with Madhutvisa Swami, who took the position of impersonalist. Prabhupada would always defeat him. This is how you become a preacher, Prabhupada said. You must be able to take both sides of the arguments and defeat your adversary. This is what Lord Chaitanya would do. Since Prabhupada's first visit to Nairobi 4 months ago, Brahmananda Swami and few American devotees had rented a house near the city. They had recruited some African devotees but had not yet developed the temple and ashram. Barely able to maintain their own simple program, they were unprepared to receive Srila Prabhupada properly. Typical of Prabhupada's stay in Nairobi was his arrival. No one was at the airport to meet him. The devotees were not even sure if Prabhupada was coming. Prabhupada's secretary had phoned Brahmananda Swami that Prabhupada was willing to come to Kenya, but that Brahmananda Swami should try to arrange a meeting with the president and schedule a big Pandal festival. Brahmananda Swami, however, had never received a clear message of when Prabhupada was coming. At the airport, Prabhupada and Madhudishwa carefully put the Radha Krishna deities into a taxi cab and rode with them to the address of ISKCON center. Prabhupada rang the doorbell, and when Brahmananda Swami opened the door and saw his spiritual master, he cried out, Prabhupada, and bowed down. What happened? Prabhupada asked, standing beside Radha and Krishna. Why no one came to pick us up at the airport? Brahmananda Swami was unable to reply. No sooner did Prabhupada arrive than his assistant Madhutrisha became bedridden with hepatitis. Prabhupada had left his regular secretary Shyamasundara in India to work on a legal case concerning the Mayapur land, so he was now without a personal assistant. In Nairobi, Prabhupada followed his usual schedule of bathing in the afternoon and then putting on fresh clothes, but one day after his bath, he found that no clothes were ready. When he asked for them, Brahmananda Swami explained that the African servant had washed them and put them on the line to dry. But when Brahmananda Swami had gone to get them, they hadn't been there. Apparently, someone had stolen them from the cloths line. Prabhupada tolerated the inconvenience without any display of emotion. That evening, when the devotees of ISKCON Nairobi gathered in the temple to hear Prabhupada speak from Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada saw the different items of stolen clothing on the African boys. One boy wore the kurta, another the top piece, another the dhoti. Prabhupada pointed this out to Brahmananda Swami, who immediately took the boys out and retrieved the clothing from them. When Brahmananda Swami returned the clothes, Prabhupada didn't seem to take the offense seriously, but only laughed. Prabhupada did not laugh, however, at Nairobi devotees' bad cooking. When they served him white maize mush, he called it pig food, and the hard, white chickpeas, he said, were suitable only for horses. Then Harikripa, a black devotee from America, went to the kitchen, boiled some vegetables, and served them to Prabhupada without any spicing. Prabhupada called it dog food. You are still an uneducated African, he told Harikripa, and he went into the kitchen and cooked for himself. Almost a dozen devotees joined him, watching him cook a complete meal of dal, rice, chapati, and sabji. He cooked enough for all the devotees, and everyone was satisfied. Bad cooking and stolen clothing, however, continued to be problems during Prabhupada's week long stay in Nairobi. Brahmananda Swami found that Prabhupada was mostly absorbed in his Bombay project. The only reason I have come, Srila Prabhupada told Brahmananda Swami, is to give you, is to get you for this. Once he asked Brahmananda Swami, which is the most important city in India? Calcutta, Brahmananda replied. Calcutta? Prabhupada looked at him oddly. Don't you know Bombay is number one, Delhi is number two, and Calcutta is number three? Prabhupada encouraged Brahmananda Swami to return with him and take charge of Bombay project. This Bombay project, he said, would be unique within ISKCON, incorporating the religious with the cultural in a gorgeous temple, international hotel, theater, and diorama exhibition. Seeing Prabhupada's strong desire, Brahmananda Maharaj agreed to somehow relinquish his Nairobi responsibilities to others and help in Bombay. In yet another way, Prabhupada's visit to Nairobi connected with his Bombay project. Sorry. In yet another way, Prabhupada's visit to Nairobi connected with his Bombay project. When Brahmananda Swami and Shavana showed Prabhupada the Nairobi Hilton, a modern building with twin round towers, Prabhupada liked the design and wanted to give it to his architect for the Bombay Hotel and Temple. Prabhupada, Brahmananda Swami, Bhagavata, and an African devotees were walking in Nairobi's public gardens. On being introduced to Prabhupada, the African had inquired, if I want to, can I get married? Oh, yes, said Prabhupada. But Prabhupada, the boy continued, if you want to get married in our community, the boy has to pay money to father of the bride. This was exactly opposite the Vedic system, Prabhupada replied, wherein the father of the bride presents a dowry to his son-in-law. Hearing this, Prabhupada's new disciple looked worried. He asked, then will you give me money when I want to get my wife? Because I am not working now, I am just working for you. When I want to get my wife, will you give me money? Prabhupada shook his head. You don't worry about all of this, he said. Whether you will get a wife or whether you will get money or this or that. Later on, when it is time for you to get married, I will bring one American girl and you will marry her. Wherever Prabhupada turned in his fledgling Nairobi temple, he found neophyte disciples and discrepancies. Walking into the Brahmachari ashram, he found books, boards, and paint cans scattered about the room. When he said things should be kept more neatly and orderly, the temple commander, Harikripa, replied, Prabhupada, I try to tell them, but these boys don't listen to me. Prabhupada bent down and picked up some pieces of wood. If they don't do it, he said, then you should do it. Put these over here. And Prabhupada began engaging all the men present. Within 5 minutes, the room was neat. The World Hare Krishna Movement Festival at Nairobi City Stadium was a combination success and failure. Although Brahmananda Swami had managed to see many highly posted government officials and diplomats, many of whom had promised to attend the festival, none of them actually appeared, except for Mr. Y. Kumara, Kenya's Director of Education. But an audience of several hundred attended Kirtan, heard Prabhupada's speech, and took prasadam. Although the devotees had invited the leading Kenya's citizens to enhance the glorification of Krishna, their honored guest, Mr. Komora used the opportunity to speak in praise of Kenya. Nevertheless, he spoke highly of Prabhupada and the Krishna consciousness movement. Regarding Bhagavad Gita, he said, "Your learned founder has made this great book available in English tradition with an erudite commentary." Srila Prabhupada also attended other engagements in and around Nairobi. He told his Nairobi disciples that in preaching to Africans, they should stress the chanting of Hare Krishna by holding public kirtans. Lord Chaitanya, he said, spoke philosophy only with learned scholars like Sanatana and Rupa Goswami, never with ordinary men. Just chant Hare Krishna, he said, this should be appreciated. Srila Prabhupada installed the deities of Radha and Krishna, Radha Krishna, and named the Nairobi temple Kirata Suddhi, a place for purifying the aborigines. One day, shortly after the deity installation, however, Prabhupada walked into the temple room and was shocked to find the deities out of their proper place in the center of the altar. Krishna was standing to the far left beside the bottom step leading up to the altar, and Radha Rani stood to the far right. Who has done this? Prabhupada called out loudly. Bhagavat came running into the temple room. He also was astonished. Who was put Radha and Krishna 10 miles away apart? Prabhupada demanded. Don't you know these things? How many times do I have to teach you? Bhuta Bhavana suddenly appeared, admitting that he was the culprit. Why are they so far apart? Prabhupada asked. I don't know, Srila Prabhupada said Bhuta Bhavana. I guess I just forgot. I was being rushed to go to the festival. So Prabhupada demanded, does that mean they should be put out in the street? Bhuta Bhavana froze, unable to reply. Prabhupada relented. Take them and put them together, he said. They should not be moved more than 3 inches apart. Now, do it nicely. After a week, Prabhupada left Nairobi and returned to Bombay. He had gone there to get Brahmananda Swami. He had accomplished his mission. Unless you agreed to take charge, Prabhupada said, I could not go ahead and pay so much money. Now it is decided. He felt new hope. Prabhupada envisioned his Bombay project as an extraordinary within ISKCON and even among all the temples of India. Many of the details of the project already existed within his mind, but he needed competent disciples to carry out them. He was still the lone leader of ISKCON, forging ahead to bring into reality new phases of Krishna consciousness movement. His disciples were behind him, but it was always he who led. Even when he wanted his disciples as leaders of various ISKCON projects, they sometimes could not handle the responsibility. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada had gone to Nairobi in the mood of the Bengali aphorism he sometimes quoted. If you want to accomplish a thing, do it by your own hand. So, by his own hand, he had brought Brahmananda Swami from Nairobi to Bombay, and he had benefited the devotees and the general populace of Nairobi. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I'll stop here.
Jai. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. This is what we do on a Friday evening.
This is amazing. Haribol.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, where are the others? I don't see them. Is it only V7?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Very nice.
I don't know why I'm not seeing you guys. Now let me second settle this. Stop sharing. Now, this is the view of a gallery. No, in gallery, I only see the two of us. Maybe, Mataji, you can turn off your video. Let's see what happened. Okay, interesting. This is first time I'm seeing speaker, immersive, for hide, show non-video participants. Yeah, that's the trick. Now you can turn on your video, Dorothea Mataji. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Yeah, Gaur Bhagwan Prabhu, you were saying something.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, lot of insights also we learned about His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj and his eagerness for sannyas, and it was also very interesting. The last part about this clothing, that these people stole the clothing of Srila Prabhupada. They came back to listen in the same place. That was funny.
Yeah, I'll tell one incident. I'll tell later. Yeah, that's also nice, sweet. Of course, hot.
Yes, and Srila Prabhupada, as in the last part was said that he took up the what he wanted on, he did by his own. He wanted, that was also
Yeah,
yeah.
to come forward by
Yes.
himself to fix up.
Yes.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. Prabhupada made his army so strong. Yeah, he has support. He used to go take care of them, bring up new hopes. Yeah. Nice. Anyone else want to share anything?
Prabhuji, is it this Rajasthan temple is the same temple which is, so this which was on the Govardhan hill? There was this deity of Govind Devji. It was the same temple, or
In Govardhan Hill,
so there was the one deity on the Govardhan, and that was shifted to in Rajasthan. So this temple,
the deity that you are telling is, I think, Gopalji deity. That is on the top where Madhavendra Puri was worshipping.
yes, yeah.
He arranged the loads of sandalwood from different places, and then so I think Gopalji deity, not
Okay.
Govindji.
Okay, this is different. Govindji
So
deity.
it's a wonderful, wonderful pastime actually. What happened is when Aurangzeb, yeah, when he was in Taj Mahal in Agra, at that time he saw that there was a lamp lit on the top of the Radha Govindji temple in Vrindavan. And at that time, he was very envious of any other religion, especially Hinduism. So what he wanted to do was that to destroy everything. But luckily, or arrangement of Krishna was within his own kingdom. There were some people who were supporting Hindus. So they told already, hey, we are coming. They are coming to destroy everything. And then at that time, the Goswamis of these temples, yeah, or the deities, what they did is that they have escaped. Yeah, how? Before these Aurangzeb people came, they went to Govardhan, yeah, as you said, right? But they went to Radhakund, Shamkund, and all those places were full of forest. So dense forest that it's not so easy to go. Yeah, it's also life risky. Only people, there were a lot of tribes who were very dangerous. But somehow the Goswamis, to protect the deities, they risk their life. They have covered the deities, yeah, in some special ways. They went through, what is this place? Kare, Karoli. Yeah, Karoli. And because they know that Rajputs, yeah, Rajputs had agreement that Rajputs being the Kshatriyas, they had an agreement somehow because of um, Akbar and his wife. My wife is being Indian, sorry, Hindu. That's why they said, we will not disturb your area, so you don't disturb our area. In that way, the agreement was. And knowing this, the Rajputs, they thought, okay, if we somehow enter Rajasthan, then the deities are safe. So they have a cart, and on the cart they carried the deities, and slowly from place to place, Radha Madan Mohan Ji deities and Radha Govind Ji deity, Radha Gopinath Ji deity, all the important Goswami Radha Krishna deities, yeah, all except Radha Raman Ji deity. All the deities were secretly brought out from Vrindavan, and yeah, they have brought in the safe custody of Rajputs, the kings that time. So that's how it itself was very, very amazing. Yeah, experience for the Goswamis to very, very secretly bring the deities, because they have done that. because Rajputs started worshipping the deities, and they also got great taste. When all this Aurangzeb and all these things are gone, there was no more threat, but they were not um, ready to give back the deities, because they said, hey, I think there is a plan definitely of Krishna to come here. Huh? So that's why they should stay here. So that's why the Radha Govindji deities that you see in Jaipur are the original Goswamiji deities. Same replicas are installed in in Vrindavan, in Radha Govindji temple, original temple.
Yes.
Yeah.
And probably other Radha Gopinath deity went back.
Also, no, all the deities. Yeah, it's very nice. Yeah, maybe we can tour over Jaipur. Wonderful temples are there. I think Vibhu did Kirtan in Radha Gopinathji temple, na, Rupa? Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, I think yes, Madhu Pandit Kurta is also there. Tulsi
Yeah,
Court
yeah. Mhm.
is there. So it's very nice place. There are nice temples, all very, very important. And all these temples are fully filled with a lot of spiritual energy. Yeah, a lot of people come, devotees, morning, evening. I think I don't know, but they look like a already retired life. Hmm? Only thing is they come when the temple bell rings. They are there. They spend nice time praying to the Lord, and after that they go. And again, when bell rings, again they come. So that's why they are very, very close to the temple, and yeah, have great attachment in serving the Lord.
So I have also heard that people before going to work, most of them they go to the temple and
Yes.
then they go to work.
Yeah. Very simple. I mean, I saw that so devotional. I mean, uh, it is devotion. I don't know if it's ritualistic. I don't know, but at least very devotional, that they have a very nice sattvic culture of seeking the blessings of the Lord, going and praying in the morning and attending the evening programs. I really appreciate. Yeah, it's not like other temples in some other places. Temple is there, the aratis are happening, but yeah, only the priest and maybe some people as a guest may come. But I saw there the householders have great attachment of doing. Yeah, they see that temple as their home temple. Yeah, very
Yes.
nice. Hmm.
Hare Krishna,
Yeah,
Prabhuji.
yeah. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, I think in this session we are fortunate to hear about glories of Tamal Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
So I think in this regard, I think we remember one incident. I think this I heard from one of the lectures of Nitesh Sevni Maharaji, where once what happened was during the preaching days of Prabhupada in India, a lot of temple presidents complained to Prabhupada against Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Then Prabhupada
Yeah.
asked, what is the complaint? They said, one of your preachers, his preaching is so powerful, all the brahmacharis are leaving the services within the temple and they're following him. And if they follow like that, then who will do our temple services? So then Prabhupada said, oh, is it? Then he called Tamal Krishna Maharaj and then told him, okay, if this is the case, then you should go to China. So those days, going to China
Yeah.
and preaching is mission impossible.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Tamal Krishna Maharaj, I think Varshana was saying that Tamal Krishna Maharaj is considered as yes man of Śrīla Prabhupada.
Yeah. Yeah. Maharaj has right hand, left hand, right? So if we see there, we see that Tamal Krishna Maharaj, yeah, we see Brahmananda Maharaj. Yeah, amazing personalities.
Yes, Prabhupada.
Yeah. Yeah. They have, I mean, I don't know, it's not so easy to have such a strong personalities at the same time, being soft at a devotional dimension, right? Either one is too strong to be only on the way that they want to do it, but at the same time, they see how strictly they have to establish Prabhupada mission, how carefully, how strongly. Yeah.
Yes, Prabhupada.
Anyway, they're not from this world anyway. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Dorothea Mataji, you raised your hand. Yeah. You want to
Yes,
share
Prabhu.
something?
Yes, I have a question
Mhm.
about the deities which broke on the journey. What do you happen to know that what is to be done when deities break, and what to do with the broken deities?
Usually it is said that according to Pancharatrika Vidhi, one should not worship. But I have seen, when we talk about Prabhupada, he did establish Radharani in the UK. Yeah, there was the deity of, and then Prabhupada still took, and then he started. Of course, he fixed it. It's not like okay, he left it like that. Um, one one school of thought says that if the deity is broken, if some small finger or something, usually they say that it becomes imperfect because of this, and that's why people say one should not worship. Yeah, the typical practice in India is if such things happen, what they do, they bring those broken forms of the deities and bring it in the temple. They leave it in the temple. Yeah, there's temples with lots of like that. But Prabhupada have instances where he did install them, but of course fixing it, if it is a small thing, if the paint is gone, definitely to paint it is easy. If a finger is broken, this is what the little finger was broken to Radharani. He fixed it and worshipped. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah. Hare
Also,
Krishna. But I think as this question came, so I will try to gather more detail and
thank you.
come back. Because
Okay.
there are definitely situations where the deities are not in the same exact form as in the new state. Yeah. Especially in Mayapur, near Mayapur temples. Yeah. In Puri.
Okay. Thank you for putting so much energy of yours into serving Krishna.
Yeah, Jai,
I
nothing.
appreciate it.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you. By the way, I mean, on Sundays and Saturdays also we do have classes. I don't know if you have the details. Saturday we discuss 7:30 to 8:30 Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam. And
70:30 to
no, 7:30 morning, 7:30.
7:30. Oh, okay. Yes, can you please send me the details, the link, and
yeah,
okay,
I'll
thank
do
you.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Satish Prabhu, you were saying something or?
No, Prabhuji.
No.
It's just that I think you recollected in one of the earlier lectures that I don't know when it was, while driving to Golok Dham or something, you said like even if somebody is telling, the shopkeeper will say that you are the first person, this discount is only for you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think it was Keshav Maharaj. Yeah, somebody asked in the recent lecture, Prabhuji, that he is more of a car salesman, and his boss is asking him to lie to the customer, saying that this discount is only for you.
Only for you.
Yeah.
Yesterday, right, Satish Prabhu. This
Exactly.
question was, yeah.
Exactly, Prabhuji. To Keshav Maharaj, and he mentioned the same thing, and just
actually, Prabhupada said I think if it comes in one of the purports of Bhagavad Gita, where this analogy is given in the chapter 18. I think maybe if you have read, I don't know if you are Dinath Prabhu had read already. In that, in one of the purports, this example comes that Vaishyas are allowed to tell lie. So in that context, Prabhupada said this, like, okay, if someone is saying that, this offer is only for you, he's lying.
Yes, Prabhuji, and even in today's verses, I think the same thing came, Prabhuji. You read that, so it was a little, it was a little nice.
Timing, yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, then let us see us tomorrow. Vanchakalpatarabhyasya kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Śrīla Prabhupāda ki jai. His Holiness Satsvarupa Goswami Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.